In this episode, you'll learn that it really is possible to eat healthy, delicious paleo meals every night of the week. We'll be making a hearty and delicious beef stew, homemade ghee, sauerkraut, and fresh, creamy almond milk. Stay tuned to the end of today's episode where you'll discover how to win one of my very favorite kitchen helpers that will help you turn those affordable cuts of meat into hearty dishes your whole family will love. I'm your host, Camille Macries, paleo chef, lover of good food and vibrant health. Each week, Camille's Paleo Kitchen brings you special guests, recipes, fun tips and tricks, along with a giveaway of one of my favorite kitchen tools that will leave you inspired and excited to cook at home for you and your family. It's all happening now on Camille's Paleo Kitchen. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 5 of Camille's Paleo Kitchen. Today we are doing one of the most requested topics I've ever gotten since I've been doing this whole paleo thing. How do you eat paleo on a budget? So in this episode, we are going to tell you how. So no longer will you have any excuses not to put all of this amazing food in your body all the time, all right? Let's jump right in. So first, we are going to do a really awesome beef stew. I'm doing this recipe for a pretty specific reason, to really show you some of the fundamental principles of how to eat on a budget. We are using a beautiful stew meat from TX Bar Organics. I absolutely love it. And it is, it's several dollars less a pound than if you were getting a steak. What we're gonna do is we have our slow cooker already preheating. Now, this slow cooker is a little bit different because it actually does heat all the way up to 450 degrees. I love the slow cooker. This is my Salad Master. And it's really nice because you're able to start it up high and sear your meat, get it nice and brown. And then when it's time, when you have all the ingredients in together, you can turn it down and do that slow cooking. But if you have a slow cooker that doesn't have this function, then you can do all of the browning of your meat in another pan. This just does it for you. So I'm gonna take all of this beautiful meat, and I have this already been heating, so it's nice and hot. So it's important when you're browning your meat, you don't want to overcrowd it. So if I was to put all of the meat in right now, it would already begin to stew. And the idea here is to begin to develop that nice brown that's gonna lend a really nice richness to your stew. So I'm gonna give this a nice pinch of salt. And just let this brown for a couple minutes, and then I'll give it a flip. Okay, so our meat has been browning now for a couple minutes, and I just want to show you, look at how nice this is. This is the nice caramelization that you want to get from the meat. This is going to lend that nice umami flavor that I love to talk about, and there's also some browning happening in the pan. But when we put our wine in, the wine is actually going to pull up all of those flavors into our sauce. It's really, really delicious. I'm going to take these out so we can make room for our other half. Now I'm going to add the rest of my meat. All right, so while this second set of meat browns, I am going to make for you one of my favorite things to cook with that takes almost no time to make. It's really simple and will cost a fraction of what it would cost if you were going to buy this at the supermarket. I'm going to make homemade ghee for you. So now I'm just going to heat up my beautiful Salad Master skillet, and I have a 4-pack of unsalted butter. It's really important that you use unsalted butter for ghee because the salt has a tendency for some reason to actually change the way everything separates. And I find that one of the things that really tends to throw people off when they get started eating paleo is they may get really excited about it and say, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to try this new recipe from this great blog and it looks so good. And they just go to the supermarket and buy all the ingredients and get to the checkout line and find that they have just spent several $100s on food and they didn't really expect it. and before they even really get started with experiencing the full benefits of eating paleo, have said, I just can't do this, it's too expensive. And I really don't want that to happen to you, because it's totally possible to eat this way and to not spend any more money than you are spending. I mean, sure, you may cut down a little bit on how much you eat out, and you are going to probably spend a little bit more money on the food at the store, but the food you're making is going to taste so delicious, and it's going to make you feel so good that there's no reason why you won't be wanting to eat more meals at home, and that's really the idea. I'm just going to take all 4 of my sticks of butter, and I'm just going to put them into the pan. So you may be asking yourself, what is the point of turning my butter into ghee? What's actually the difference? So what's happening when you turn butter into ghee is a couple things. One is it's separating out the butter into different forms, or into its different components. So all of the people that I've met who are sensitive to dairy and even are sensitive to butter have no problem tolerating ghee. Another reason I love ghee is because it has a much higher smoke point. That's because it's had those proteins taken out, and all that's left is that really nice yellow oil. So that's what we're doing here. By cooking it all down, we are separating out the foam and the bottom milky part, so we're just left with the fat. So this is going to just come to a little boil, a low boil, and you're going to notice that it's going to start to foam. So I'm going to let it be for a couple minutes, and we're going to go back to our meat, okay? So this is looking really, really good. I'm going to now take out the beef, and I'm going to add in the onions and the carrots and the celery, and we're going to begin to take all of this nice meat pan junk and turn it into a delicious sauce. Okay, so I'm going to add the onions in. I think I'm going to add a little bit more butter because it's just that kind of a day. Wow, so these onions are starting to smell really, really nice. They are beginning to pull up our meat pan junk. And now I'm going to add in our garlic, which, as you know, you don't add in with the onion because we don't want it to burn. Now we're going to do some magic. So we have some pretty inexpensive red wine here. I think this was maybe $5 a bottle at Trader Joe's. For a stew like this that has red meat in it, I like a heavier red wine versus something like a Pinot Noir, just because it has more of that body, and it's really going to help to bring out some of those nice meat flavors. So now, like I said, this wine is going to work, that the acid in the wine is actually going to work and pulling up the meat pan junk. And while that wine just evaporates a little bit of the alcohol out, I'm going to go back and show you what's happening with our ghee. So the process of making the ghee, it actually goes through 2 stages. It goes through an initial boil stage, and then it's going to stop, and then it's going to start again. And it's actually by going through both of those stages that we're able to extract all of the proteins out of the clarified butter. So here we are still in its first stage. So now back over to our delicious meat. I'm going to add in my carrots, my celery, my red potatoes, add a little bit more salt. We're going to add some really nice tomatoes. These are the Muir Glen tomatoes. And when you're eating tomatoes out of a can, It's really important that you get a BPA-free can because tomatoes are really, really acidic. And if you have BPA in your can, then as the tomatoes sit in there, it actually can leach out those toxins from the can. So I don't even in general like to get canned tomatoes, but I do know that they go above and beyond to create cans that are safe for you to eat from. So these are the roasted, these are the fire roasted. Again, these have like a nice little char and it's gonna lend a nice smokiness to the dish. Now we're going to add our meat back in. Wow. So now I'm going to cover it up for a second and chop up my herbs. This brings me to the next lesson of today's show is if you want to save money on delicious herbs, grow them at home. All of these herbs came from my garden. Rosemary grows like a weed. You put that thing in the ground, you give it enough space, it's just gonna go to town. I also have thyme, and we have some basil that we'll use later. But so I'm just going to pull the stem off of my rosemary. I'm gonna give this a chop. And pop it back in. Gonna give this one last quick stir and then we're gonna turn down the temperature. Okay, so now we are going to move back over to our ghee, which is finished. And what I have here is a little storage container. I have a fine mesh sieve, and then on top of that, I'm putting some cheesecloth. So the reason why I'm doing this is because this is going to capture all of the stuff that we were separating out of the ghee. So now I'm just going to pour my nice, beautiful butter through this. See all of these little bits? That's all of what would be considered like burnt butter. Which is why ghee is way better for cooking with than butter, because we've already strained all of that off. Now, you don't have to cook your ghee through the 2 cycles, but you're not going to have that really nice nuttiness. And see, look how nice this is. And this also is a purer form. So there we have our delicious ghee. Okay, so now it is time to make sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is one of those things that you should really be eating every day. It is a true superfood. But like I said, when you try to buy it at the supermarket, it's gonna cost a lot more than it needs to. I got this whole head of cabbage here for like $1.49 and it's organic. So the first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that your hands are really clean and whatever you're gonna be putting your sauerkraut in is really clean, because this is going to ferment and you don't want there to be any extra germs that are fermenting along in the process. So we're gonna start by shredding our cabbage. Now I'm using my trusty Salad Master machine, but you can also just cut it thin with a knife, or you can cut it and put it into a chute of a food processor that has the single blade. But we're gonna use the Salad Master machine because I love it and it's super easy. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna get some of our really nice Polynesian sea salt that my best friend Katie brought me. So good. I'm gonna put a nice liberal amount of this. What's gonna happen here is as I knead the cabbage, the salt is gonna help to extract the water, and that's gonna create the brine that's gonna sit on top of the cabbage. So we'll have the cabbage all here, and then we'll have the juices up on top, and then we'll put a little stopper in and basically allow the cabbage to just ferment. So now, as we do this, I want to take the opportunity to tell you about some of my heroes in this whole eating healthy on a budget. My friends, the Lomelinos. They are an amazing family with 5 young kids. They eat healthier than any family I have ever known on a single earner income. And their family is just amazing. I mean, they get almost all of their food from the farmer's market. Holly likes to go at the end of the market, which I always recommend. And she barters with the farmers because the farmers don't really want to take home all of that extra food. And if you buy it in bulk, then they'll give you a much better deal. So from there, she'll take it home. And like if she has a whole bunch of cabbages, she'll make sauerkraut. You know, if she has a whole bunch of peaches, then she'll can them. So what I'm doing is I'm just kneading, and do you see how this is starting to release juices? So some of that is the cabbage, but it's beginning, there we go, it's beginning to drip. So now I'm just going to put my cabbage into my little crock. When I say little crock, I mean huge crock. It's really important that you get all of this liquid because this is going to help the whole process along. So what's going to happen is we're going to put a weight down, and that's going to keep the cabbage weighted down and the briny liquid over the top. And then we're going to cover this with a cheesecloth so that it has a little bit of air still able to come in and circulate. And every couple days, I'm going to come in and I'm going to push down the sauerkraut, release those bubbles. And there could be like sometimes like foam or even mold that could begin to develop on the top. And that's really not a problem because we have that brine. And that's really like the sealant. And sometimes like a little piece of sauerkraut will pop up. That's not a big deal. You just, with a very clean, sterile spoon, you're just going to want to clean it off. And people have a lot of different opinions about how long you should do your sauerkraut for. But what I really think is best is just to taste it. After like 4 or 5 days, you just go in and you taste it. Do I like the way this tastes? Do I want to keep it going? I like to just eat a little bit of sauerkraut at each meal if I have it on hand. And that helps it helps you with your digestion and to really assimilate more of your nutrients. So we're gonna go and we're gonna finish this off, and we are going to now make our almond milk. All right, now it's time to make our almond milk. I love homemade almond milk. It is so good, and it is so much cheaper than buying it at the store. Also, when you make it at home, it doesn't have any of those weird ingredients like carrageenan. Yuck. So we have our raw almonds that have been soaking in some purified water for 8 hours. We're just gonna put this into our Vitamix. Then I'm gonna add 2 medjool dates. You may want, this is gonna be a little bit sweeter with 2, you may wanna start with 1, but I soaked these also in some hot water. And the reason I did that is because if you don't, you can just throw them in, but they're gonna stay sort of chunky, and this is gonna allow it to really get creamy. So I'm gonna add 2, make it a little bit sweeter today. Then I'm gonna add some really nice vanilla because it's vanilla almond milk. And just a pinch of sea salt. Now I'm gonna add my purified water. I'm gonna start with just a little, and we're going to get it all nice and ground up. So all I'm gonna do now is just gonna do 1 glass. It's gonna take some good aim here to get this in our cup. Oh, there we go. It's happening. It is happening. Wow, look at how creamy this is. Oh, it's so nice. It smells so good. You can really smell you can really smell the vanilla. This is the richest, most beautiful glass of almond milk. Oh, it's so good. It's so creamy and so frothy and so delicious. And I think this entire thing of almond milk probably cost us about $2. And now, the moment you have all been waiting for, our giveaway. This is a good one, if I do say so myself. Since we were doing paleo on a budget today, I thought we really got to do a slow cooker, because the slow cooker is such a great way to make a really fast paleo meal using high quality meat that is of a less expensive cut, like roasts and shoulders and stew meat like we use today. So to win this beautiful Cuisinart slow cooker, here's what you have to do. You need to make one of the things that we made today. So either the beef stew, the almond milk, the ghee, or the sauerkraut. Take a picture of that, post it on Instagram, #paleogasm. And each week we choose one winner at random to give this slow cooker away. And I want it to be you. So get in the kitchen and try one of these recipes or all of the recipes that we made here today. You remember that last week we had a really awesome giveaway. Michelle Norris from Paleo FX was here, and she gave away 2 all-access passes to Paleo FX. And next week we have another really great giveaway. I'm going to be giving away the 2-burner griddle that you've seen me use sometimes from Salad Master, and a copy of my cookbook Paleogasm. You are not going to want to miss that. You can also return to paleokitchen.tv a week after and find out who the winner was. And don't forget, eating paleo doesn't have to be expensive, and it can taste oh so good. Thank you for joining me today. I cannot wait to see you again next week. Bye-bye.